Hey, what's up guys? Joker here, and I hope you're all doing well. Today we have got a couple of PC gaming hardware news stories, as well as an update on Call of Duty Modern Warfare and ray tracing support in that title with some new gameplay footage. First up, we're going to be talking about Nvidia, though, quite a bit, as they put out a new driver from Gamescom, numbered 436.02, which is bringing in a bunch of new features and performance uplifts for some pretty popular titles, so we're going to get fired into all of the news. But first, today's video is brought to you by LevelGo.com, where you could save money on games for all of your favorite platforms, as well as software like Windows 10 Pro for under $16, Microsoft Office 2019 for $80, and Microsoft Office 2016 for under $40. And if you use my coupon codes at checkout, you can save an additional 22% off of Windows 10 Pro, or 16% off of any software you pick up over there, or now you can get 3% off of the entire website with the code PDS3 at checkout, so be sure to use these coupon codes with the links down in the description below. So we'll kick things off talking about Nvidia and that new Gamescom driver, which they just released today. It's available now. You can get it through the GeForce Experience, or you can download it online. I'll have a link down below with the sources for today's topics. It also has a link over to Guru 3D where you can grab the 436.02 WHQL driver if you want to go ahead and give it a try for yourself, as it is adding in a couple of new features, as I said at the start here, plus performance uplifts that Nvidia is promising up to 23% uplift in certain titles like Apex Legends and Forza Horizon 4. You could see on this graph that was released by Nvidia that it is getting up to around 23% in performance, but of course these are Nvidia's own in-house numbers, so you should take them with the proverbial ray-traced truckload of salt. But you can see Apex Legends is getting the biggest performance uplift here of 23% on a 2080 Super, and they did limit their testing here to just the 3 different Super variants of the card, so you know how much performance uplift you'll see on other cards, older GPUs, non-RTX cards and such, remains to be seen. I'll have to do some testing with that, but it looks like Nvidia is at least promising big performance uplift, and I would hope that this is going to extend to other cards as well, not just the most recently released Super cards, but they are saying it is meant to give performance uplift for all cards. But Apex Legends, Battlefield 5, Forza Horizon 4, Strange Brigade, and World War Z are all promised to get the biggest uplifts of some of the titles that they have better optimized for now. And let me know if you'd like me to go back and test with the new driver on some other games too, and see if we see any types of performance uplift. Any performance uplift is always good. Now, that's not actually the biggest news coming from this. Actually, the biggest news that I think is that Nvidia is adding in their own ultra-low latency mode, which might sound familiar, as AMD just did this with the new Navi GPUs, and Nvidia was actually originally throwing shade at them, saying, oh, we've had the option to set pre-rendered frames for over a decade, and now you're just adding it in, which was an oversimplification, and also just factually incorrect on Nvidia's part for exactly what was happening there. So Nvidia is going to be adding in their own ultra low latency mode, and the feature will basically have 3 different settings. So you can either set it to off, which will probably default to whatever the game normally runs, around 1 to 3 frames will be pre-rendered, and then you could also turn the ultra low latency mode on, which would give you 1 frame of maximum pre-rendered frames. But you've always been able to really do that through the Nvidia driver. That's something I usually pretty much always do by myself. I've been doing it for years because it does give you lower latency in games. The Ultra setting, however, is designed to operate dynamically and submit the frame just in time for the GPU to grab it and get it rendered. This is the option to use when your game's GPU bound, but you're still achieving frame rates between 60 FPS and 100 FPS and want to get the latency down. If you look at this graph here, you can see the difference in some of these titles, some obviously having more drastic differences than others, but the lower the latency, the better it is always going to be. And in something like the Division 2, it definitely seems pretty drastic, where running it off, you can have latency up around 49 milliseconds, whereas running it on Ultra will drop it all the way down to 22 milliseconds. So that's roughly a 55% reduction in latency. So that is something that you would probably definitely notice, especially in a fast-paced game. So it seems like this is going to be a good option that is definitely worth using. Now, they've also announced one other new feature, which is called GPU integer scaling, and basically what this is going to do is take older titles that are pretty low fidelity and basically bring them up to modern resolutions with sharper upscaling. As you can see on this example here, you can see the linear interpolation versus the Turing integer scaling. Now, this is going to be limited to just Turing GPUs. The ultra low latency should work on all GeForce cards as far as I know, but the GPU integer scaling, because it works with the Turing architecture, specifically, you will need to have a RTX, or I guess maybe a non-RTX Turing card as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, if something like a 1660 or 1660 Ti would work. They've said just for now, they just said you have to have a Turing GPU, so that would lead me to believe that it is going to work on the non-RTX Turing variants as well. So definitely some interesting stuff here being introduced by Nvidia, adding in that ultra low latency mode, basically playing catch up to AMD. That's definitely different for a change, but I guess they saw a need there, and it seems like they either were already planning to do this, or they figured out what AMD was doing pretty fast and were able to do it easily themselves. So at least we'll be getting that now. That sounds pretty good. Having the ultra low latency mode on, I would definitely run that. Yeah, why not? If it's not going to affect the gameplay negatively in any way or the performance, then why not? Why would you not want low latency? And I have messed around with it on the Navi GPUs, and I couldn't really notice it a ton. But I guess in a really fast first-person shooter, like maybe the upcoming Call of Duty Modern Warfare, see what I did there? Nice transition, as we're going to be talking about that right now. Nvidia is at Gamescom, and they actually held a press event there, and some YouTubers were out there. They were able to get some new gameplay of Call of Duty Modern Warfare with ray-traced shadows enabled on the 2v2 gunfight mode. The video you'll be seeing right now is footage from a YouTuber by the name of Jack Frags. He basically covers pretty much every first-person shooter game that comes out. He has over 1 million subscribers. I've been following him for years. I will have his video linked along with all the rest of the sources down in the description below if you want to check out his full video, which I do suggest you doing, as he gives his hands-on impressions of the actual gameplay and stuff like that. And so far, from what he was saying, is that the PC version seems pretty damn good. It's a good port, and it just plays really well. The gameplay is good. The guns, everything, the sound, the feel of the game. He seems very, very pleased with it, and he's someone whose opinion who I usually trust, and I've been looking forward to this game more and more as I keep hearing about it, so today is no different. So we're going to take a look at the some of the ray-traced effects, but first I want to show you a scene that he used in his video of the options menu. Unfortunately, as you can see at the top here, the graphics menu was locked out, so we're not going to be able to get a look at the actual graphics options, but you can see some other options in here that you'll be able to customize to be able to play this game, which all look really good. It's got mouse sensitivity sliders, mouse smoothing, free look. You could change the different behaviors in the game, like sliding, whether you want it to be a tap or a hold. We've got fully remappable key bindings and all that stuff. So a lot of rebindable keyboard and mouse options that you can go ahead and mess with. We've also got an FOV slider in here, which is definitely nice to have, and also you can adjust the ADS for when you're aiming down sights, the field of view on that from either independent or whether or not you want it to be affected by the field of view slider. As you can see, he's got it set to 90 on here, which is at the midway point, and if we go back just a couple of frames here, you can see on the right, it shows the different FOVs and what it'll actually set to, so you can see that the lowest one in here is 60 and the highest is 120. So that's a massive range for an FOV slider. It's going to be able to go from 60 all the way up to 120. So that's really great to see, just so that everyone can get the FOV that they personally like to use. I like playing first-person shooters usually at 90, but some people like it to be more narrow, some people like it to be wider and get that kind of fisheye effect, but you do get more information. So you'll be able to customize it to your heart's content, which is always going to be a good thing. And even though the graphics options were locked out in the general options, you can see that there were options in there for motion blur, which there's actually two different motion blurs. So there's one for the actual world and one for your weapon. So separately adjustable motion blur options, which is pretty cool. But honestly, it doesn't really matter because I'm just going to end up disabling both of them because motion blur is ass. Now, in terms of the ray-traced shadows, those were present here in the gameplay as they were playing the 2v2 gunfight mode, which is the only multiplayer mode as of right now that we have heard that will support ray tracing outside of the single player. The other modes will not support ray traced shadows, which is the only ray tracing tech that is going to be in this game. And Jack mentioned in his video as he was playing, he had one of the Nvidia guys in his ears, like yelling to him to look at the bullet casings on the ground because they have shadows, which, as you can see here, they do. As he's going around, you can see little shadows coming off of the bullet casings and stuff, which is just kind of an effect you don't really need. And also pretty much any small object on the ground, these bits of debris and rock here, you can see all little shadows coming off of them, which is, you know, not going to impact your gameplay in any way whatsoever. And I don't expect you to be running around in a fast-paced shooter looking at bullet casing shadows, but hey, it's there in the game. But you know what would have been cool is if they actually had shadows on things like, you know, the player models, which actually could be useful. As you'll see here, he comes up into this room, and you can see there is absolutely no shadow whatsoever being cast by the player. So he could have been laying on the ground enjoying all of the amazing shadows of the bullet casings laying there. Meanwhile, he could get knifed from behind by Charlie 02 because he didn't see the shadow being cast by his player model as he walked into the room. So maybe spend more time putting these ray trace shadows onto objects that actually matter, rather than 2mm fucking bullet casings that are laying on the ground that nobody is going to give a shit about besides looking at them for all of 2 seconds and then turning the option off because it's probably going to completely butcher your frame rate and add nothing whatsoever to the gameplay experience. But that is all that I have got for you guys today on the Nvidia ray tracing in Call of Duty Modern Warfare and the new driver update that did come out, which I'm actually pretty excited for to try out with the ultra low latency mode and see if I get any performance uplift in the titles that I have been playing as of late. So let me know your thoughts on everything we covered here today down in the comments, as I do look forward to continuing the discussion and interacting with you guys as always. And yeah, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're not already. And I will see you tomorrow for another video. And I snapped too early there. My rhythm's way off. I'll catch you guys next time.